everyone. Welcome to month 2 of our aPult block of the month. I'm Karen and I'm here from Sew and Save in my sewing studio this weekend, working on my second block for our aPult block of the month. This is part of our Sew What Club that's meeting in the store every month, but you can follow along online if you can't join us. All you need is the aPult direction booklet and a cat's cradle ruler, both of which you can get right here at Sew and Save. So pick those up and you can follow along with us. Last month we made our first block. Today this is our second block. So this is the block that we're going to be making today. In order to do that, you're going to have to start out by doing a little bit of cutting. So we have our gold, our background, our red, our blue, and our brown fabrics cut. So for the gold, you're going to need 8 small squares. For the red, you'll need 1 large square. That's going to be the center of your block. For the background, you'll need 8 squares and 4 rectangles. The rectangles will be part of your cat's cradle block, and the squares will be part of not only the center, but your corner blocks as well. Then you'll need 4 blue rectangles and 4 brown rectangles. These two are going to create the colored section of your cat's cradle block along with your gold squares. So use your instruction sheet for block 2, do your cutting, and come back and I'll show you what to do with all of these pieces. See you in a few minutes. So the first thing that we're going to do for block 2 is make our cat's cradle blocks. And as I showed you a second ago, we're going to make 2 different colored sets of cat's cradle blocks. We're going to make a gold and blue set, and we're going to make a brown and gold set. So let me show you how you're going to do that. I have my brown rectangles laid out and my blue rectangles laid out. On top of those, I'm going to lay my gold squares on top of those, and they're going to be right sides together, and you're going to line up your short edges. Actually, what I'm going to do, which is actually much easier, I'm going to redo this on my board. I'm going to lay these out for you. So I've got my blue, and then I have my gold, brown and gold. So we're going to lay brown and gold just like this. And I lay these all out, and then I'm going to take them over to my sewing machine, and I'm going to sew along the short edges of these. I'm going to chain stitch all of these because that will go super quick. And each set, we're going to end up with 4 cat's cradle blocks in blue and gold and 4 cat's cradle blocks in brown and gold. So now I'm just going to go and stitch my short edges, and then we'll come back and do the rest. I have all of these sewn together. You can see that I have the 4 gold and brown sets and 4 gold and blue sets. I've pressed all of my seams toward the rectangle, away from the square toward the rectangle. Now I'm going to take and line up these little rectangles together. Remember, we're going to put the squares on opposite ends and the rectangles on opposite ends. You can see that's a little kitty wampus. You know what? We know that that's not going to matter because everything is going to get trimmed down smaller later on. I'm going to sew across the top of each one of these at 1/4 inch, and then we will come back and press them. So I'm going to do these, and the same with the blue. Gold on opposite ends, blues on opposite ends. Same on all of these. Stitch across the top of each one of these at 1/4 inch, and then come back. You have these all sewn together. Now it's time to do that little itty bitty snip and press. So we're going to take our block, fold them in half lengthwise, find the little center point, and snip up to the seam. And we're going to do that with all of these little blocks. Remember to try not to snip through your stitch, just up to that stitch. Fold it in half and snip. And one more. Now I'm going to take my little ironing mat, and we're going to give these a press. Remember, you're going to press your seam toward that rectangle again, so we're going to do that. We will press all 4 of those. If I can get it open, we'll press all 4. There we go. Toward the rectangles, and then I give it another little press on the other side. Make it nice and flat. Looks beautiful. So I'll have 2 brown pieces and 2 blue pieces. There we go. Press the last one. Give that a nice press. Nice and flat. Alrighty, now we're going to take all 4 of these, lay them out, and we're going to match them up. I'm actually going to slide those out of the way. We're actually going to match them up with our rectangle, large rectangle background pieces. This is my background. And I'm going to lay these upside down on top of that, just like this. You can see mine are, mine might look a little small. It's okay. They don't match 100% perfectly. That is all right, because we are going to trim these down to size later, and they're too big anyways. I'm going to get my little board here. I'm going to take my cat's cradle ruler, and I'm going to line up the little placement seam line with the seam line of my little square. Remember, we're going to lay that right on there. It's going to give me a diagonal line to draw, and I'm going to grab a Frixion pen. There we go. I'm going to grab a Frixion pen and draw a line. Alrighty, then I'm going to flip it, do the same on this side. I'm lining up my seam placement line. I'm going to kind of flip this a little bit more. Here we go. My seam placement line right along the seam line of my little square. And this, I am drawing the line that I'm going to sew on. And this is not very dark. I'm going to get one that's a little bit darker for you, so you can see what that line really looks like. Right here. This is a darker one. There we go. All right. Now you can see it better. A line there and a line right here. Just like that. So I'm going to stitch right on the lines that I drew. I'm going to come back here and do the same with all 4 of these. Then I'm going to go over to my sewing machine and stitch them. I now have them all stitched, 2 lines of stitching, kind of down the center and at the corners of all of these little squares. I'm going to take my ruler, my cat's cradle ruler, take that little 1/4 inch seam line, line it up on the line that I stitched, and trim. And I'm going to do that on all of these blocks. Then I'll flip it and trim it again, because you do trim just a little bit off of that as you're going along. Not much, but just a little. So I will trim all of those and then I will be ready to press. Got all my little triangles trimmed. Now I'm ready to press, and I'm going to press toward the background piece, towards just the plain triangle. So I'm going to press all of those, and then there's my black. There's my brown and gold, and let me grab a blue one. And here is the blue one right here. So my seam and press. And there is a blue and gold one. So we're going to press all of these and then we will square them up. I have all my pieces nicely pressed, and we are now ready to trim down our pieces. Now we're going to use the trim side of the cat's cradle ruler, and we're going to line our little gold square up with the 3-inch trim line mark. So I'm lining that 3-inch line right up on the edge there, and then there's a diagonal line that cuts right there, and that's going to lay right on my seam line. I'm going to use that and that, so the dotted line goes across my seam line, the 3-inch line goes on the gold block, and I'm going to trim all of those. So this is how I do this, so that I'm not flipping my ruler back and forth. I line up all of my blocks on my cutting mat, and I'm not sure, I think we could get them all in here. So now I know what I'm lining up to on my ruler, and it's easy for me to just lift it and lay it out onto the next block. So here's my 3-inch mark. I'm going to lay the 3-inch right along there on my square, and the diagonal line right on the diagonal. So I'm going to get that lined up, and then I'm just going to pick it up and go to each one of these and do the exact same trim. Pick it up, move it over. Line up the 3-inch on the square, the diagonal along my seam line, and trim. And here's Bailey. This is the newest member of our family. Bailey, she's about 4 months old now, and she is just part of everything that we do. So here she is. She's my little helper today. So you can see that I've got all of mine trimmed on this side. Now I'm going to rotate my block so that the background is up at the top right corner. Just like that. Now we're going to get this back from Bailey, and we're just going to flip our ruler over, line up that diagonal 3-inch diagonal line along our seam line, and you can see here that there's a little dotted line, and that's going to go right down to the corner point of my gold square. And we're going to trim that off, and look at how beautiful those blocks are. We're going to continue all the way around till we get them all. So now I know what I'm lining my blocks up to and with on my ruler, so then I don't have to keep flipping my ruler and figuring out what I'm lining up with. I'm looking at the same marks every time I pick them up and move it. Makes it so much easier. Line up the diagonal line and the diagonal line through your little gold square and trim. And now you can see your beautiful cat's cradle blocks. They're going to be the perfect size. Go back over here. Do the same over here. What do you think, Bailey? Oops, I did that one already. Let's do this one. Let's do one we haven't done. How about that? Bailey's a little tired this morning. She's been playing all day. I don't think you can see her. She's off screen on my little board here. It's right over there. Good spot for her. Otherwise, she is right in the middle of everything I do. Huh, Bailey? All righty, and we're going to trim up this last one, and that's all you need to do to make your cat's cradle blocks. Fast, easy, beautiful, and perfectly square. All right, I'm going to set all of these aside, and the next thing we're going to do is our center block. These are pretty awesome. I like them. All righty. There we go, Bailey. Now, this is our center block. And I have some squares here. And we're going to put squares in 2 opposing corners to make our center. I'm going to grab my ruler. I have my cat's cradle ruler right here, so I will use that. You can use any kind of ruler to draw a line diagonally from corner to corner on this one and corner to corner on this. We're going to stitch right on the line, and then we're going to press. I've stitched both of these diagonal lines. I stitch right on the line that I drew. I'm going to grab my cat's cradle ruler because it's right here. I'm going to use that 1/4 of an inch seam allowance line, line that up on the line that I stitched on, and trim off this excess. And do the same right here along the other side. Next thing we're going to do is give this a nice press. So we're going to just press these cream or the background blocks to the outside, just like this. Looks good so far. Looks good. All right. Now I'm going to do the same thing with these 2. I'm going to put the one on each of the opposite diagonal sides. Alrighty, draw our lines again and press, and that's all we're going to have to do for our center, and we will be ready to put our blocks together. And I'll show you how to put your whole big block together as soon as we get this done. I now have both of my little seams sewn here. I sewed right on the diagonal line that I drew. And now I am using my cat's cradle ruler again with the 1/4 inch seam allowance line. And I'm trimming that down. And we'll press that out away from the center block. This is now your center square. And we are now ready to sew this whole block together. That was fast and easy, wasn't it? It's going to be beautiful. Okay, here we go. Put my paper over. All right, well, they're going to have you first stitch together, and I'm going to kind of lay this out, and then I'm going to stitch it together so that I know that I have it correct. So on this side, we're going to put a blue and gold square, and a blue and gold square right here, and a blue and gold right here, and one, I believe, right here. All right. Then we're going to come back along and add our brown and gold squares. So we'll end up sewing these little ones together. Oops, we're going the wrong direction right here. That's why we lay it out ahead of time, because it's going to kind of look like a flying goose when it's done, these little star point kind of things. So we want to make sure this is laying the wrong way. So we're going to lay it the right way so that we end up with, there we go, little star points as we go along. I laid all those out, going the wrong way. There we are. So now you can see that they're laid out like little star points. And then in the end, your background squares are going to go right here on each corner of the block. So I laid it out first to make sure I have everything correct. So you can see I have a brown, blue, brown, blue, brown, blue, brown, blue. If I had 2 blues together and 2 browns together like this and then like this, it would be incorrect. So you want to go every other one, brown, blue, brown, blue, brown, blue, all the way around. Just like that. So now I'm going to sew these guys together first, and then we'll come back and sew the all the rows together. I have all my star point cat's cradle blocks sewn together. I laid them back out and double checked to make sure I had brown, blue, brown, blue, brown, blue, brown, blue, and I didn't switch one around or flip one the wrong direction. And I pressed my seams open so they're nice and flat. The next step is to sew your rows together. So I'll take and I'll sew my 2 squares to my 2 cat's cradle blocks, my cat cradle blocks to the center, and then repeat what I did on the first row and sew the squares to the cat's cradle block. I'm going to do that, press it, and I'll be right back. I stitched all 3 rows together, pressing toward the outside on the top and bottom. So I pressed toward the outside squares here and here, and then toward the center with my center strip. Now I'm going to sew all 3 blocks together, or 3 rows together, to make my block. And here is our month 2 completed block. I hope you had fun with this block. If you have any questions, you know how to get in touch with me. Email me, text me, call me. I'm happy to help anytime. You can even stop in at the store and we'll give you a hand. But I hope your block comes out as beautifully as mine did and you have lots of fun with this. See you next month. Bye.